According to a new report by the Brennan Center for Justice, Trump administration has a plan to basically end free and fair elections in the United States by 2026, and failing that, 2028. Now, the plan was detailed in a combination of Trump executive orders made on March 25th, which would change the way federal elections are administered, and force voters to show papers if we want to vote, along with the SAVE Act, which could disenfranchise at least 21 million people, most of them women, who tend not to vote for Donald Trump. Here's basically how they plan to do it. The different facets of this, okay? They want to rewrite election rules to burden the voters and take control of election systems, target or threaten election officials and others who keep elections free and fair, get rid of federal officials at the Justice Department who counter disinformation and combat racial discrimination, to put election deniers on state and local election boards, to defund the agencies that Congress established to safeguard the vote and ensure that Federal Elections Commission, which has been hobbled by years-long deadlock, remains toothless, and to finally give a go signal to future violence to try to overturn elections like on January 6th. And of course, he already paved the way by pardoning the insurrectionists from January 6th. And there it is, all those things combined. There goes the end of our democratic system of government. Not only that, but what we're seeing in Texas, of course, with their massively gerrymandered maps that intentionally disenfranchise Democratic voters, I mean, that's dangerous. We are literally seeing the end of democracy unfold right in front of our eyes. Now, in that case, Democrats have actually fought back a little bit. They left the state so that Republicans couldn't advance that map, and you had even help from Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who gave those Democrats sanctuary in that state so they could wait it out, so they can end that session and not be able to push their map through. Now, that's not all. States have already gone to court to try to block Donald Trump's changes, his executive orders. In fact, according to the Brennan Center, the president has no right to rewrite the country's election rules or regulate federal elections on his own, which counteracts that March 25th executive order. As a federal court recently put it, the Constitution vests none of these powers in the president. In issuing the order, the president claimed extraordinary unilateral authority to regulate federal elections and usurp the powers of Congress, the states, and the U.S. Elections Administration Commission, an independent bipartisan federal agency. Now, look, this is nothing more than authoritarian power grab straight from Project 2025, the thing that President Trump claimed that he knew nothing about when he was a candidate. What, the Project 2025? No, I don't know anything about that. And you know, what I've seen about it, I don't actually like it. So, you know, we're not going to be doing that. Oops. Turns out, no, that was the plan. It was always the plan. And they actually even admitted after Donald Trump had won. They're like, yeah, you know, we're going to admit that, yes, that was the plan. We are doing Project 2025, and it's about halfway done. Trump lied because he's a liar. That's right. He's a well-known, documented liar. Over 30,000 lies in his first term alone. This man goes above and beyond in bending the truth. And yet, for some reason, his fans are like, oh, yeah, he's a truth teller. He tells it the way it is. No. Look, his fans only like it when Trump says racist and hateful things. That's what they love. They love the fact that Trump allows them to be the worst versions of themselves. I've never had a MAGA person in my comments that was at all interested in any sort of respectful dialogue. People are the meanest, nastiest people you could imagine. And guess what? I'm giving it back in kind. Simple as that. But getting back to the Brennan report. They note that Trump's efforts to entrench himself in power go far beyond what Trump had already attempted to do after he lost the 2020 presidential election. He lost. He's a loser. That's right. No matter what, he's a loser. But here's the thing. The Brennan Center actually forgot to mention the stacking of the state and local election boards. The Brennan Center does a great job. ProPublica, all those Nonprofits do fantastic reporting, but they did forget that. Now, the sacking of the state and local election boards actually occurred, an attempt had occurred in Nevada in 2020 and 2024. And after the 4-member evenly split Wayne County, Michigan elections board voted 3-1 to certify Biden's margin there in 2020, Michigan Republicans decided to respond by forcing their Republican commissioner who voted to certify that election out of office. They're like, oh, you voted to certify the election for Biden? No, you're gone. You're gone. Get out. We only like election deniers. They replaced him with someone who would not vote to certify a Democratic president under any circumstance. Understand what that means. We have institutions that can no longer be counted on to be guardrails against authoritarianism because they have been usurped. They have been taken over. There's more. When it comes to the voters, the administration has been trying to impose a show your papers requirement on them, which again would undermine voting and disrupt election administration in multiple respects. Estimates that are that the mandate, the SAVE Act, or both, would end up disenfranchising at least 21 million voters nationwide. Most of them would be women, whose names on their initial voter registrations are different from the name that they now use. And that's one way that they're trying to eliminate the female vote, which again does not exactly go the way, except for white women. Let's be honest, white women still overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump. And this happens, voted for their own disenfranchisement. That's it. Now, the administration also wants to force the states to recertify all of their voting machines, all of them, to buy new ones or both, which would cost, of course, tens of billions of dollars. And that does not sound very efficient. Now, does it? I thought we were all about reducing waste, fraud, and inefficiency. What happened? Not only that, but of course, they plan to retaliate against opponents. Okay? People who oppose their attempts at trying to rig the vote. The targets include state and local elections officials, nonpartisan groups like the League of Women Voters, civic groups that mobilize voters, and other individuals and entities that protect elections and the rule of law. That kind of retaliation could target both unions and their get out the vote drives, as well as groups like the Poor People's Campaign, which registers and mobilizes poor and low wealth people, very voters least likely to participate in elections, but also the most likely to oppose the far right. Ironically, this administration is doing all that, trying to curb these groups and get out the vote efforts and unions and their political activity. And yet, the IRS just recently allowed for churches to do the same thing, to be openly political, even to the point of making official endorsements of candidates. And yet, these churches are still allowed to keep their tax-exempt status. I mean, really? Really? The Brennan Center report also showed other likely targets for law enforcement type of retaliation, which would include individual voters, election officials, perceived political adversaries, and journalists. You know who does stuff like this? Fascists. Authoritarians. The Brennan Center reports that there are 3 active task forces leading this retaliation effort. The Justice Department's Weaponization Working Group, ironically, weaponized against Democrats. The New Jersey U.S. Attorney's Office Election Integrity Task Force, and the Washington, D.C. Attorney's Office Special Unit. And you know what? They actually know who they're going for, who the voters are, thanks to the efforts of Doge, who had access to the private and personal registration file for voters. The Brennan Center warns that this administration could abuse voter file access in order to claim fraud and to erode public trust in elections. They could also pressure state officials to target groups of voters and carry out unwarranted voter purges. Any disclosure of sensitive personal information puts individuals and groups at risk of being intimidated or doxxed, and mishandling voter file data could expose U.S. elections to political and foreign interference. As for the election officials, those people are also being intimidated. Rudy Giuliani, for example, already did that, tried to do that to Ruby Freeman and Shane Moss, two election workers, whom he went and claimed were, had rigged the election against Donald Trump. Without any evidence, it wasn't true. They sued and they won. And Giuliani has yet to pay them. The report says that criminal investigations and prosecutions would impose a severe personal and financial toll on these election officials or nonprofit employees for simply doing their jobs to help keep elections free and fair. Beyond that, the harms that stem from targeting the officials and civil society groups that make our elections work are manifold, the Brennan Center report says. Even if this administration never charges any officials, the threat alone of criminal investigation or prosecution will likely exacerbate the exodus of election officials. In 2024, 33% of local election officials knew at least one colleague who resigned in part due to fear for their safety, of increased threats, or of intimidation. 21% stated that they were unlikely to continue serving in their role for the 2026 midterms. And in 2025, 59% of officials reported fear of political interference in their ability to do their jobs. 46% were very or somewhat concerned about potential politically motivated investigations of themselves and their families. That right there is extremely frightening. Now, the question is, how do we fight back? The Brennan Center for Justice says that people could take it upon themselves to sue the government for damages. Federal and state law, they say, prohibits anyone, including federal officials, from intimidating voters and those, like election officials, or civic engagement organizations who assist and encourage them to vote. And though voters rarely do so, they are able to sue DOJ officials under anti-intimidation laws in federal court. The Constitution establishes a system of checks and balances to ensure free and fair elections. Power to regulate elections lie in the hands of states and Congress, courts and advocates, and complement the system to uphold the Constitution and federal law. The U.S. election and infrastructure leaves no room for the president to insert himself, and yet that is exactly what he purports to do. Look, there it is. Make no mistake. Our democracy is in danger. It is teetering on the edge, more so than it ever has been, I think, in the history of this country. And I'm going to be honest with you, there is not a lot of time left to save it, but save it we can if we all get involved, if we all get engaged and show up. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.